So welcome back to the Expert Edge. Today's conversation is with Dr. Jin Ong. Now, she is phenomenal. She's been a incredible member and still is incredible member of many of our programs, including our elite implementation program, our inner circle mastermind. And I wanted to bring her on because not only has she built an incredible, profitable, thriving expert business, but she has a really unique message and modality. In fact, she combines her background in osteopath, she's a doctor, combined with intuition, emotional work. It's just incredible. And so today's conversation is like no other. In fact, she does a kind of a body read on me, which is really interesting around my broken shoulder. So definitely listen out for that. But what's interesting is I think today's conversation, you're going to learn more about yourself, about what your body is telling you, and about how to listen to your body so that you can create the life that you've always dreamt of. So let's get into today's conversation with Dr. Jin Ong. Hey, it's Colin, and you are listening to the Expert Edge podcast. I was a professional speaker for over a decade, and now I focus on helping coaches, speakers, and course creators to speak and sell on virtual and live stages. The Expert Edge podcast is weekly content focused on helping you build your expert business. We cover marketing, storytelling, sales, communication skills, and so much more. Thanks for taking the time to tune in, and make sure you subscribe and follow us on all our social channels so you don't miss a thing. Let's listen to today's episode. Dr. Jin Ong, welcome to the Expert Edge.
Hi, Colin. Thanks so much.
Hey, I'm so excited to have you here. You've been a part of our programs for years. We've become great friends through the process, and you're just incredible. I'm super excited about this conversation. And so I think we're going to go deep. We're going to go into meaning. We're going to go into so much stuff. And what I love about what you do is it's not like you're not doing like business coaching and like teaching people how to make money, which is all good. Like you do deep emotional work, but you also like have built a really profitable expert business that runs really well. I know you were in our elite program for a few years, and then you joined our mastermind level. And so just watching you do your work is incredible. So give us some context. What do you do? How do you help people? Like, give us just like some higher level context so people understand.
Sure. So my background was as an osteopath, acupuncturist, and herbalist, and I ran a couple of clinics and I had a team. And through that journey of almost 2 decades, I got to see thousands of patients and clients, and I noticed all of these repeating patterns in their physical body, in their mental health. And I didn't really have the opportunity to go deeper with people, and they weren't responding to protocols and treatments that they should. And I recognized that there was a deeper emotional root at play that people weren't addressing. And so I started going down the route of helping people process their emotions and help them be able to decipher the message from their pain, their experience. So usually I'd be working with people with chronic and complex health conditions like cancer, autoimmune disease, or people on a fertility journey. And it was pretty remarkable just in helping them process their emotions and actually go much deeper than most emotional modalities. They were starting to shift their pain. They were starting to resolve their health issues. And not only that, be able to expand into other facets of their life, like their relationships, their business, their money relationship, and so on. And I didn't expect it to take me on the journey of helping people manifest an incredible life.
Tell me about one of the moments when you realized like you had a bit of a gift or you had an ability to be able to speak truth into people. What's a moment that stands out for you?
Oh, I think that my body actually kind of forced me into it. So I feel like when we've got a gift, we kind of dismiss it because it comes so easily to us that we don't think it would be of any value to people. So it was actually born out of my own health crisis where my body was literally screaming to me in the form of skin conditions like cystic acne, breaking out in hives and rashes, triggering autoimmune conditions in my joints, and getting sick all of the time. I was like, what is going on? Because I actually loved my job. I loved where I was living. I had a really beautiful relationship. And so it didn't make sense to me. I didn't feel stressed. And for whatever reason, I actually went down the pathway of processing my emotions because I got into a massive fix it mentality with my body. I was looking externally. Once upon a time, it was conventional medicine and all the pills and supplements. Then it was controlling my diet. Then it was trying other emotional therapies, and nothing was working. And so, what came through out of my own emotional work that I was just intuitively led to, I feel like I created enough space for messages to be able to land. And I got a couple of vague messages like speak your truth, follow your intuition. And then all of a sudden, I got a really loud message saying, Jin, you can intuitively see the emotions stuck in people's bodies that's responsible for their undesirable manifestations, and you need to speak the truth to it. I was like, that's so true. And I was an osteopath at the time, but it really felt like that wasn't my scope of practice. So I felt the truth of it and I got excited, but then my logical mind got in the way and said, what are people going to think about you? What are your patients? What's the industry going to think about you? And so I kind of dabbled in it, but I largely closed it off. And it led to me being able to make a decision to leave my job, even though it was actually a great job, and decide to step into this new identity of being an osteopath that spoke at a deeper level to these emotions. And I actually parked it for a couple of years. I decided to meditate. I decided to have a baby. And I really believe that because I wasn't expressing myself on that deeper level, speaking my truth, that I got hit with another autoimmune skin condition called lichen sclerosis. And immediately I knew that the only thing that I hadn't done was step into that identity. And so that's when I realized I had to do it because I had no other options.
Yeah.
Everything else was costing me so much time and money.
Yeah. I mean, what comes up for me is that whole idea of the body keeps score and that your body is trying to send you a message. And so what I'm hearing is you went through a personal journey, and when you started to get the message and act and live out of intention in a certain way, did it start to resolve things in your body, the illnesses? Like what kind of happened?
Oh, absolutely. So I say that the emotional work gave me enough courage to leave my job and be without a job and give myself space and time. It also gave me space to envision what it is I wanted my life to look like. And so I remember wanting to live in New Zealand and set up 2 clinics. I said, I want a clinic in Monaco, one in Queenstown, and I wanted to build a dream team. And I remember even projecting the figures that I was going to make in year 1, 2, and 3. And this felt like an impossible vision. It was a 5-year vision. But when I made some of the uncomfortable moves, because Gav and I moved from Australia to New Zealand, we drained our bank account, we moved with a 20-month-old Violet, and it just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
But making those moves and having the courage, that's what the emotional work helped me do, because I was stepping into the unknown. And it was absolutely incredible because that 5-year vision actually happened on a much faster timeline of 18 months. And yeah, it's so hard to explain, but it was making the uncomfortable moves.
Yeah.
And now I just trust these messages.
Right. So what I'm hearing is that the emotional work creates space and energy and courage to do the things that you've been putting off, which then a lot of the time releases healing and breakthrough and all sorts of release in your life. I know you got a program called Release. What's the big concept of release so people understand it?
Yeah. So I love emotional work, and I think people are very intelligent about emotional work nowadays. There's lots of books, there's lots of content out there, but I feel like to process your emotions is actually an experience. And I'm a huge advocate that if you're going on a journey of working at a deeper emotional level, that you actually have support, because there's just some stuff that you can't see. And so if you're trying to navigate it on your own, you'll only work on the stuff you can see. And quite often you'll work on the easier stuff, not the stuff that's actually going to move you forwards. And when it comes to emotions as well, if they've been suppressed for such a long time and you haven't actually experienced them for many years, if ever, it can be deeply uncomfortable when the emotions associated with sensations and feelings come up. And releasing can happen not only on an emotional level, but physical and physiological. So it can be a little bit scary, but if you understand that this is your body feeling safe to release and this is actually normal, and usually that comes in the form of support, then you can actually make progress.
So you've got, it's obviously a combination of your technical training as a doctor, your physiological training working with people's bodies, and then your intuitive lessons and spiritual world as well. Like you've got this ability to combine all three things together. It's very unique. And I know that people fly from all over the world to spend some time with you and your horses, and just have breakthrough experiences. Can you give us some examples? Like, let's say there's listeners out there, and could you take me through like one to three typical things that maybe you've seen in clients that might relate? Because I know even before we jumped on the podcast, you were telling me about my right shoulder, which I'm happy to talk about. Most everyone here knows I broke my right shoulder surfing. And Jin I'd never heard, she hadn't shared this with me before, but she gave me like a really powerful interpretation of what might be happening and so forth, and what I might be sensing. And so, so let's go to some typical things that you've seen, and then we'll go to my right shoulder.
Yeah, sure. Oh gosh, what's typical? Because I actually don't work with typical stuff. I work with conditions and
Well,
diagnoses.
what's one? What's the first one that comes to mind?
Okay, so the easiest things to interpret is when there is a specific location on the body. So it's a problem with a body part or an organ. The issue that I have that I really try and educate people on is that when they ask me what is the emotion behind a condition, that's not enough information for me, because different conditions have got so many different levels of severity and locations that they can show up on the body. And that's where I need some more personal interaction with people to dive deeper.
Yeah.
But, well, for example, people will usually come to me because they're doing all of the right things treatment-wise, say for a musculoskeletal injury, and it's not getting better. And the practitioner starts to say, I don't know what's happening. Or they start getting new symptoms showing up in different areas of their body or getting worse. And then some people will go down the surgical pathway, but then they get complications. And this is where I see it just going pear-shaped. They are continuing to look for fix-it solutions, which I totally understand. But when they're not working, it's because these challenges that they're being confronted with are trying to communicate a message with them.
Yeah.
And there's a truth that usually comes through that can be deeply uncomfortable, or it requires change. And humans aren't that great at changing a lot of the time.
Yeah. So, for example, like let's say if someone has a bad right ankle, what comes up for you? What's the first kind of messages and things that come up for you?
Yeah. Okay. So, well, actually, shall I tell my story about my right ankle?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So this is where it gets a little bit more personal. I broke my right ankle, and what was funny was I ended up selling my business in 2021. So I transitioned into the online space 2020, and I realized that my energy wasn't in the clinic anymore because I wasn't able to attract practitioners. They didn't want to work with me. And I just thought, I've got to sell this business baby before it dies in the ass. And I sold it. I went to celebrate, and I decided I want to get a personal trainer and I want to start horse riding again in 2022. And on the 30th of December, 2021, I was on my new electric bike and I went into a ditch. I didn't commit to it and I broke my ankle. I've never broken a bone in my life. I broke my right fibula, and it was really interesting because it wasn't painful. And I was getting x-rays on it and I was told it was healed. And because I was an osteopath and I had access to the back end of imaging, I had a look at it.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm pretty sure I can still see the break there, and it doesn't even look like it started healing. Now, if I hadn't looked at it, I would have gone, yeah, it's healed. And it actually took a whole 12 months, and I kept on getting x-rays. I had about 5. And then I realized, hang on a minute, I feel absolutely fine. why is it that I'm waiting for an image to tell me that my ankle and the bone has healed?
Yeah.
And I actually fell into the fix-it mentality. I spent about $10,000 on PEMF mats, taking all these supplements. I got another device to help the bone heal. I did all of this stuff because I was in pain. And then I thought, you know what, Jen, you're in pain. You need to come back to processing the emotions and find out the message behind this experience. And so for me, what really surprised me is the message came through to say, Jen, be patient. You've done the work. And I couldn't make sense of it. And that's the thing, is that sometimes the message comes through and it's like, all right, you know, can't you give me something a little bit more specific? But now, with so many years past, I can see what that message actually meant. And what's interesting as well for me is that I noticed I used to get very triggered by people saying, Jen, you just need to be a little bit more patient. You need to slow down. And there was obviously truth to it, but for some reason, I just didn't want to hear it from these people. I had to hear it from my body. And unfortunately, it had to get to that point. So what I love about that experience is that I didn't wait for my bone to heal before saying yes to life. Like I even contemplated, well, what if this is as good as it gets? What if it stays broken? What if it is just a little bit sore?
Yeah.
You know, I would have regretted not starting horse riding earlier. And that's obviously taken me on some pretty cool journeys. So that's more specific about the right ankle. But if I was to be speaking to someone, I'd say, look, it's probably telling me that you don't feel grounded with where you are in your physical location. And actually, prior to that, we weren't living where we are now. You're not feeling grounded in your physical location. You're not feeling grounded in your work career, in your direction. So that instability. But of course, there's so many different conditions that can happen in the ankle, and they all have a different energy. And then really what it's about is finding out what is that person's unique experience. And that's what we start to process, and that's how we process emotions.
When you say unique experience, how do you mean?
So when I talk about, right, your right ankle shows me that you're feeling not grounded in your physical location or not grounded in your workplace, they're two very different things. So it's what really resonates for that person. And they start to tick over and realize, oh, yeah, I've had these thoughts that I'm not really happy living in this state or this suburb or this country. And I've been wanting to move overseas, but I haven't been making the moves. And so my mind's been telling me, now my body's telling me. And another thing that comes up around ankles is feeling like your ankles are in shackles, like you feel like a slave to your family. So those are ones that have definitely resonated with people that I've worked with chronic ankle conditions, but each person has resonated with one on a deeper level. And then that's when we hone in. So I kind of have this issue at the same time of giving people overarching metaphysical meanings, because it only gets people so far. And again, when they want to work on it on their own, they're only working on what they can see.
Yeah, that's cool. So it sounds like it's a combination of, like, you will sometimes give interpretations, give meanings and things like that. But then I know in terms of like your business, you have, you know, processes that people move through in that journey. Can you explain what some of those big high level processes are and how you've kind of come up with those and what sort of results they see?
Yeah. So I call it a 4-step process. It's the release process. And people always ask me, where did you train? Where did you learn this from? I say it's just from years of clinical practice and seeing thousands of clients and seeing the structure work over and over again. And so
you didn't find it on ChatGPT?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
It was
wow.
before ChatGPT. I'm so glad I did find it beforehand.
I know.
And actually, I didn't do a lot of training in this area. It sounds terrible. I didn't do a lot of training in this area, and I'm kind of glad that I didn't, because it's my own process that I deeply trust and have seen results in. And I think that if I took part in too many other programs, I would be really questioning it, or I would have this fear that people thought I was copying someone else's process. But I can actually just stand in this and say, no, it's come from within and it's taken people to incredible places.
Yeah,
so
no, I
what
love
does it
that.
look like?
I love that.
It's a 4-step process. And the first one I'll share with people that they can start with. I call it the emergency release button, and it's scream. I call it scream therapy.
Yeah.
And people go, oh my gosh, is this your process? Honestly, I have some people join my program and say, this is the best thing that's come out of it. That's fine. I know they can go a lot deeper. But the great thing about the scream is that you don't need to analyze, intellectualize, identify what is going on at all. And it takes about 3 to 10 seconds to execute a scream. And I think that even just in the effort of trying and what comes out.
And you're talking about like a physical scream.
Yeah, just scream.
Yeah.
It's fascinating what comes up. I swear I could coach people for 3 weeks on this because there can be resistance, and there can sometimes be medical conditions where it's not actually appropriate for someone to scream.
Yeah.
And that's where I find that giving an additional layer of support is really important, because resistance comes up when you're going to start to peel away the layers. So there's the scream, and that can just unlock so much and make it easier to dive deeper.
Yeah, love it.
But then the core of the process is a verbal dialogue, and it has a particular structure that you follow when you are processing events and experiences. And I find that there's a lot of safety in the structure. And when I ask people to process, I say you've got to pick one specific memory, event, or interaction to process on. It'll only get overwhelming when you try and do too much. But what's beautiful about the process is that you can actually check off, have I said everything that I need to say? Have I received everything that I actually need to receive to allow this level of healing to be activated? And then there are some variations, but the basic process that I really teach people is around processing on people and triggers in their life. That's the easiest form. And then there's all sorts of variations to work on if, say, for example, you've got an organ or a body part that's been removed or it's not functioning. You want to find out what is the message it has for you, why, and what is it trying to say to you. And then sometimes we get as curly as connecting in with the other side when people have lost loved ones. So it's a beautiful process that's quite simple, but the human makes it more complex, which is, again, why I love to get in there and give people support, because I can literally see their processes, or if I'm facilitating it with one-to-one clients, I know exactly why the person is having issues in their life and why they're not receiving what they want, even down to healing.
I love that. So is that the second? You said there's 4 parts. That was the second bit?
Yeah, so the verbal dialogue makes up 2, 3, 4. Sorry.
Right,
2,
okay.
3, 4.
Okay, cool.
Scream. And then there's 3 parts to the verbal dialogue.
The verbal dialogue. Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah. I love that. I love that. This is just so fascinating. Now, you brought up our conversation, like, and I'm a human test dummy here. I broke my shoulder recently surfing, and it's pretty well healed now. It's like 95%. I've still got a little bit of it's still locked a little bit. But you gave me a really interesting kind of meaning to like, and imagine someone else as well has a bad shoulder or something. Can you share with me what you shared?
Yeah. And it was because I saw that you had that sling on for a long time. I was like, this is not healing on the timeline.
Well, you were the one who spoke to me about the type of sling I had as well. You were like, what are you doing wearing that type of sling? It was the sling that the emergency room gave me, and it was like hurting my neck so bad. And then I grabbed like a $22 one on Amazon, and it was amazing. So thank you for that.
You even had a tea towel in there at one point.
Yeah, I did. I had a tea towel in there supporting the little string that was like killing my neck.
I was like, Colin, I'm pretty sure you can afford a good sling there.
Yeah, totally.
So funny.
I didn't even think I didn't even think that there were like better slings out there. It's so funny. I wasn't in the sling market for long, so I didn't understand.
Well, that's the thing, right? We think it's going to get better in a few weeks. I'll just like stick with this. And then when it's a few weeks later or a few months later, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so human nature
I was feeling it. I was feeling it for sure. I mean, and I didn't stop. Like I just kept, delivering and coaching and serving and which kind of was interesting what you kind of said to me around, the right arm, the right shoulder can be around having boundaries and getting more support in your life.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Well, shall we dive into it?
Yeah, let's go. Yeah.
So it's funny because a lot of people just go, oh, I just need to be more boundaried in my life. And their boundaries actually come from a place of anger and a place of fight, and you feel it. And for me, I say there's a particular way to come up with boundaries. So this is a bit more of an overarching metaphysical theme, but I'll tell you where you can go deeper with it.
Yeah.
So shoulders overall, you have a left shoulder and you've got a right shoulder. So that's why it's no good to ask, what's the emotion behind the shoulders? And I think there's a few cliche sayings out there that do have some truth to it, is that people say things like, oh, I don't want to be a burden to people. I feel like I've got the weight of the world on my shoulders. So that's how we can look at it at a very superficial level. But then if we go to the right shoulder, that's actually your masculine side, which is all about the drive, the physical, and the doing. And we know that that is all beneficial in life, but sometimes we overdo that. And so if anyone's got a right shoulder issue in a generalized form, I'll say, okay, I know that you are doing too much. You are physically out there helping, serving, maybe even I use the example of like picking up firewood, and your shoulder might have been a little bit achy before you even broke it, and someone says, can you go grab this for me? And you're like, yeah, sure. Like, just so willing to support others. But then usually when you get an injury that really stops you where you can't physically use it, it's saying, hey, you need to actually conserve this energy. You need to start saying no to people and being okay with that. And it can be deeply uncomfortable to say no to people, especially if you have been a yes person, and then handling their reaction. And so, yeah, your body's just saying, hey, this is now putting you in a position where you've got to be vulnerable and you've got to learn to ask for support for other people to do things for you. And we want you to experience that. So that's still a very overarching metaphysical meaning. Where I would go deeper is, as I'm speaking to you, and you don't need to share this on the podcast, but as I'm speaking to you, what memories, what thoughts, what people are coming up in your mind. And then these become the events, the experiences, the people that you process on. And that's where deeper messages come through.
That's so fascinating. It's funny because it literally happened a month after we moved countries. And I'd shared this on the podcast that we'd moved back to Australia, reestablished our lives. And then I was quite unhappy with our life there. And it was surprising. It kind of came as a surprise, to be quite frank, to the point that we decided to move back to the US. Because I just, in my life personally, and even my wife's life, we just felt a lot of purpose here. And I was on the back end of like all of that move and everything going on. Like, it was so intense. I tell you, Gina, it was a special day when I physically couldn't do anything. Like, I remember, like, there was, because I don't have days off. When I say I don't have days off, is I do have days off, and I mean, to be frank, most Fridays I'll clear my day and I'm like, it's free to kind of do what I want. I end up doing some strategic stuff and some work, but it's like generally free. But it's like I never don't show up. Like, I'm like, if I've got something to show up to for a client or for my life, it's like it's non-negotiable. And I think that serves me really well in terms of like growth and momentum and consistency and brand. But it was a lovely day when I realized, I was like, I physically can't show up to these things for the next 2 or 3 days. And it was like, I had to cancel my appointments. And I'm like, I never do that.
Yeah.
So it was really fascinating that it was almost like it felt like really enjoyable to have a broken shoulder.
Yes. Yeah. It's so interesting. And a lot of people say that. And sometimes I think some of us have to get a really loud message. But the transition would be to choose to do nothing out of pleasure versus out of pain.
Yeah, definitely. That's the lesson for me. So good, Jin. What's really kind of been interesting for you lately, and I'm also, because I know you're in our inner circle, you've been in our elite program, you've been in our coaching programs for quite some time. I'm curious about how you've grown and developed this business, because I know there's a lot of listeners out there and they work in the emotional space, in the relationship space, in the life coaching space, or like it's not necessarily, it's not necessarily like business coaching. How have you grown your business? Because I know you charge premium prices, and sometimes people say, "Oh, you can't charge much for like emotional coaching and psychology." But it's like, no, you are a premium experience when they join your programs. How have you built your business? Like, what are some of the strategies, the mechanisms that you use and are continuing to use or be curious about in building your business, especially in your field?
Mm. So just quickly, something I want to speak to is that I end up business coaching people, but only after they've done the emotional work, because I find that otherwise the business coaching is purely strategic, not backed up from energy and really knowing oneself.
Mm.
And there comes a point, which I'm sure you understand, that there are intuitive decisions that also don't make sense, like moving countries and moving back again. But it's
Yeah,
just
that doesn't
something
make,
that you
don't
have to
recommend
do.
that for anyone.
I'm like, whoa, I tell people that story.
Yeah,
So
yeah, same. I'll try not to tell them, but
sometimes we just got to try, right? And that's something that I've really learned from you. Uh, so I've always followed my intuition.
yeah,
And I say intuitive decisions don't make sense. And if you're asking the wrong people for validation, then they're going to project their fears on you, because a lot of people are after safety and security.
mm.
And actually, it was during the pandemic when I didn't know if the whole world was going to live for the next 2 years. And I just thought, has my soul lived its purpose so it can ascend? And it's like, no. And it took me quite a few
Is
years
this
to
it?
realize, yeah, is this it? But it was great, because I thought, you know what? I don't care what people think of me anymore. Everyone's so caught up in their own stuff. But also, what happened was our clinic shut the doors for 7 to 8 weeks. We went from many tens of thousands of dollars coming in each month to tens of thousands of dollars going out. And
Yeah,
so I say that I was driven by fear. And again, I think the emotional work helped me to still think clearly as
yeah,
to what can I do? Because I had responsibility for a team and their
yeah,
jobs,
yeah.
yet all this money going out. So I said, I have to do something. And I just started a podcast, and I just wanted to share the message. And I really started with, if I can just change one person's life.
Mm.
When I was younger, I always wanted to be that person. You know, when you just sometimes receive some coaching or a piece of life advice and it just sticks with you,
Mm.
like, I want to be that person.
Mm.
And so I started from a place of not wanting to make money, even though that was something that was needed. It's
Yeah.
just, I just have to do this. It's my purpose. I want to share. I want to help people heal. I want to show them what's possible. And it was really interesting, because as I put my work out there, I just noticed people were attracted to it. And I say that money becomes the energetic byproduct of who you are, who you're becoming. And
Yeah,
I know you vibe with that as well.
yeah.
And the art of listening to your body just started to grow like an exponential, beautiful beast. And the other thing, my energy was no longer there, and that was kind of dying a slow death. So it's learning to let go to be able to grow. I also say delegation is really important, which was something that I did well in the clinic. And it was a leap of faith to go into, is this going to work? Because I thought it was a COVID high. I thought, I don't know.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've just had to trust it, and also been able to communicate with my body on a deeper level, and the challenges that happen externally. I get these crazy messages that still don't make sense, but I follow them and they just serve me so well.
Mm.
So the emotional work that I do for myself is not so much about moving away from pain, but again, moving towards pleasure. And I would say that the biggest difference has been getting support. So when I had the clinical business and I bought the second business, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. That was when I hired mentors more consistently. And I just said, I will do everything you tell me to do, and I will take responsibility for what I choose not to do. And I think I still carry that into our
You
coaching,
do,
right?
yeah, you do.
And I didn't know what to do in the online space, and
Mm.
I invested big in the online space. And thankfully, I feel like, again, the emotional work helped me to attract the right people, because I didn't know what I was doing. And there were so many times, like I remember there being so much about sell out on your webinar. And I did my first webinar, and I actually only had 15 people register. I had 8 people turn up. And one person bought on the webinar, which actually I realize now is pretty amazing.
It's really good. Yeah. It's really good stats.
And I was about to bail, and my coach said, "No, Jin, you need to follow up with people."
Yeah.
And if I had been doing this on my own, because I invested when tens of thousands of dollars were going out. I think in COVID, we were allowed to take our super out from Australia.
Oh,
I only
right.
had 17,000. So I took that out and I invested it in myself. And she said, "No, like, you're at this level. This is what you need to do." And I was like, "Oh," and I had 8 people on my first ever course, which is amazing. And so it's that value of support, which I talk about in the emotional world. So I've consistently been part of a group or had one-to-one coaching, depending on how fast I want to move and what it is I want to create. But what's been really amazing for me is that I haven't done the traditional start with a low-cost offer and then build up. I started more higher end. I started with one-to-one coaching, and I had no problem charging what I wanted to, because I had once upon a time been the practitioner that was seeing 50 to 70 clients in a week. And I loved that. But also for the people who really needed the deeper emotional work, there wasn't enough time to talk about their family, their relationships, their job and how much they hated it, or their past traumas. And so I know that people are willing to pay more to get a level of service and support. And so for me to be able to do that, it was definitely a transition, a mindset transition. And I had to hold the gap, because all of a sudden clients weren't coming that quickly. And it was just being so patient to take on the right person. Because if you're going to be with them for 3 months or 6 months, you want it to be the right match. You want to have fun with them, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely makes a difference.
But it felt great, because I just heard so many complaints from people of, "Oh, I only had 15 minutes, I only had an hour," or they really felt they became the therapist for the practitioner because they could pick up that they had issues. So I knew that I had to give myself space and time to live a good life, so that my energy was able to, and my capacity was there to hold space for my clients and their big emotions, and sometimes the craziest, unbelievable experiences that they've been through. Because they don't want me to get sucked into their story. They know they just want to work at the emotional level so that they can move through and live to their potential.
I love that.
So,
So it's like, it's getting mentorship, but also combining it with trusting your intuition. I mean, I know even in our group, just literally the other day, we were having a conversation with a new thing that you're testing. And I was suggesting one way, and you were like, "I'm feeling a lot of resistance around that." And then I know you. So I said to you, I'm like, "You need to trust your intuition with this. Like, this is, as much as I recommend this, I think you should trust your intuition." And it's like, I know that, we, in our programs, we teach a lot of structure and process and kind of like frameworks and things like that. And you've managed to put your energetic work into some level of the structure, and you've got some great results from it. But I also want to say, like, I love getting to know my clients who I work with, like yourself, and I'm like, no, I know you. Like, you need to go with what you're feeling as well. And so I feel like you did you do a great job of that, of finding that, that balance that works well. So
yeah. And, I just want to give credit to you, because I found you on a $47 ad and I was like, whoa. And you really helped me with my story, because I have a million crazy stories to share. Your conversion story formula. And it was 2 days before I was going to run a masterclass, a cancer masterclass. And I completely changed my story, because I was very dismissive that my health journey story was not relevant to people in the cancer space. But I was like, this guy's incredible. And I wanted straight into your bigger program. I was like, what have you got? And I couldn't find anything on your website. And what I was really grateful for coming into your space is that I probably did get a little bit too intuitive and a little bit flowy. And my work started to not make sense, which I'm okay with as well. But this is, again, I said about the masculine, the physical, the doing, the action, which is really important. But masculine is also the structure. And I think that everything that's got beauty in the world, the feminine, the flow, is held by masculine structure. So it's like, what is the simple structure? So you really helped me own my story and where the stories are placed to share. And you gave me structure and helped me with a presentation because I was always coming up with new stuff every time
Yes.
and feeling really awkward sharing the same thing. And I just never would have, like, I've been in my world for so long that I wasn't trying to conjure up the information, which was great, but it was putting it in the right place. And although it was challenging, it's like, I've got to give this a go. You know, something's happening. I want to attract new people. And you gave me this amazing structure to follow where I could just put all the pieces that were a little bit ADHD out there and put them into a concise place to go, right, this is what people need to hear. Because I think we can just get lost in our work. So you gave me the structure, and man, it works so well. And then what I had to work through was doing it again. And I've always had so much resistance, but I get curious as to, well, what if? What if I was to embrace this? And I get a little bit annoyed when people say test it.
Yeah.
But I'm listening. I'm listening. And when it's the right time, it lands. And it's been a really interesting process. And actually, I ended up writing a book out of learning how to do a presentation with you because I saw the structure.
Yeah. Chat with us about the book, because I think that's a great next step for people if I'm sure there's a bunch of people who are listening today and they're like, I got to say, guys, like Jin she's a unique individual. And if you've resonated on a physicality level, emotional, spiritual level, and you're like, man, I need to go deeper into this. I feel like my body's telling me some messages that I'm not quite getting yet. Like, what's the best next step? Tell us about your book and that process.
Yeah. Well, I'm a long form person, right?
Yes, you are.
I can't do short emails, short social media. I'm like, I need people to have capacity. So you've got to read a book.
Yeah.
So my book's called Healing Beyond the Diagnosis. And I work with patterns, and I just saw so many repeating patterns to the point where it felt like they could live in a permanent way as words and pages in a book. And Healing Beyond the Diagnosis was born actually out of a challenging time with business where I was given the space and time to finally write it. And it really takes you on that journey from pain to pleasure. You don't need to have a physical issue. You might just have repeating patterns in your life that that doesn't serve. And maybe you've been told by a number of people that you've got to work at the emotional level, and you have, but you know that it's got to go even deeper. So I honestly didn't know how the book was going to land, and I've had incredible feedback where people have just known this is the right next step for me. And because I didn't have anything low cost, $2,500 was the lowest thing that I had.
Yeah.
And people used to get a bit narky with me of like, well, if your work's that good, why don't you make it free? Why don't you make it affordable? And I never gave into that. It's like, I'm not making this book just because of you. It's because this is the right time for me and the right energies infused into it. And there are about 13, I think, transformational stories. Every client has let me use their real name. And these stories seem unbelievable. But honestly, I can only speak the truth. And it's such an honor and a privilege to be able to share stories of cancer journeys, remission, fertility, some basic musculoskeletal stuff, but to show how pain was the gateway to liberation and how their lives opened up to relationships, business opportunities, magical money. It's absolutely crazy. And all of these people, they didn't even have that on their radar. They just wanted their pain to go away.
Yeah.
And they trusted something deeper in themselves that led them into this world that's not always comfortable.
I love that. So what's the best place for them to go? Can they grab it on your main website, like drjinong.com?
Yeah. Yep. So it's on Amazon. There's an ebook. There is the paperback. So you go to drjinong.com/HBD book. So Healing Beyond the Diagnosis. And I also recorded an audio book as well at the end of 2025. So that's available privately on my website. But that should take you to the link. You can download chapter 3 for free, which is all about getting your body into the right emotional space and foundation so that you can receive conventional therapies, alternative and energetic.
Yeah. Jin, your stuff's amazing. I love having you in our programs and a part of our community. I genuinely mean that. And you're such a unique individual bringing work that is, so special to what you do. A lot of the times people say, oh, why does my message matter? Because there's so many people talking about, the same topic, and like you've been able to take a general topic and bring a really unique angle on it that I don't think people experience anywhere without you. And so thanks for coming on the Expert Edge. Thanks for being a great client and friend of mine. And I'm excited to see where the journey goes for you.
Thanks so much, Colin.